Downgrade is great because it allows you to go back to the version from which you upgraded without losing any data. And this could be done days, weeks, or even months after the initial upgrade. It's important to note that the version that you downgrade to, of course, has to be the one you upgraded from, which means for 19C, you can downgrade to 18, 12.201, 12.102, or 11.204, but you can't downgrade arbitrarily. For example, you couldn't upgrade from 11.204 and then downgrade back to 12.102. So make sure that you know what version it is you upgraded from. And frankly, it's a good idea to keep the original Oracle home around until you're sure that you won't have to downgrade. Also a good idea, just like for upgrade, and you're going to hear that phrase a lot, by the way, just like for upgrade, it's a good idea to take a backup before you downgrade. And the best backup possible is, of course, an RMAN level 0 backup. If you can't do that, then at least a level 1 backup before you attempt this downgrade process. It's also recommended before you downgrade to install the latest release update in your current home and in the Oracle home to which you're downgrading. That may seem a little counterintuitive that you're going to install perhaps a release update that you haven't used yet, but the fact is that those release updates may have fixes in them that will make your downgrade either faster or address bugs that you could encounter during the downgrade process. So you want the fullest and most complete set of fixes for the downgrade. Of course, we recommend being on the latest release update for your upgrade as well. But at this point, if you're already falling back, that's water under the bridge. What about statistics? Well, again, just like with upgrade, we would suggest that after the downgrade, you immediately gather dictionary statistics because the downgrade is, after all, going to heavily affect the dictionary of the database. For fixed object stats, again, just like the upgrade, we suggest regathering them after your database has had some time in a typical workload in the version that you're now going to be running. And then for optimizer statistics, well, just regather stale statistics as you normally would. Well, what about DataGuard? This can always add complexity to an upgrade or downgrade situation because you have not just one database, but a primary and at least one standby. Well, downgrading a database does not have to negatively affect your standby. You can bring the standby along with you with a pretty simple set of steps. First, you would downgrade the primary. And while this is happening, of course, redo apply is going to be happening on the target system. The redo will get shipped over there, and then you would wait for the redo to finish applying to your standby database. At this point, you're going to restart both databases in the lower Oracle home. Because remember, the DataGuard was, or the downgrade was happening in the higher Oracle home. In this case, let's say 19C on both cases. We then restart the databases in the lower version Oracle home. And then on the primary, you would go through the cat reload and the recompilation of invalid objects using utlrp. Afterwards, run data patch to make sure any one-off patches get applied in that old Oracle home, because the cat reload won't do that for you. Once that's all done, then you can wait for the redo to synchronize again, and both your primary and standby will be at the old Oracle version. Now, it's important to note, if you're using DataGuard Broker, that the broker does not itself support the downgrade operation. So this means that you have to shut down the DataGuard Broker when you're going to perform this downgrade. And in fact, in general, it's a good idea to back up your DataGuard Broker configuration before the upgrade. Then you could just restore it after the downgrade if needed, or otherwise you're going to recreate the DataGuard Broker configuration after you've completed downgrading. And finally, what about RAC? RAC and DataGuard are often used together, not always, of course, but even for a RAC database without DataGuard, what are the complexities involved there? Well, the first thing is, yes, it is possible, of course, to downgrade a RAC database. As I mentioned earlier, when we were talking about things like Golden Gate and grid infrastructure download, a higher version of grid infrastructure can support a lower version of a database. So what we're talking about here is simply downgrading the database within a grid infrastructure configuration. Just like upgrade, there's that phrase again, just like upgrade, for downgrade, cluster database has to be set to false. We're only going to be working on one node of the cluster to perform the downgrade. So what we would do is we would stop all the other instances, stop all the instances of the database and set cluster database to false. And then you can simply downgrade using the db downgrade script. Afterwards, we would restart in one instance, only one instance in upgrade mode to run cat reload, recompile invalid objects with utlrp, and apply data patch, just like downgrading any database. Only once that is done would we stop the instance and do the clusterware downgrade. Now, what I mean here is not downgrading clusterware itself, but the servectl command, which tells clusterware that this database is now running in its older version Oracle Home, and that the services provided by clusterware should be those for a 12.201 or 12.102 or 11.204 database.